Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shojo's Bizarre Adventure. It is I, your host, Stella Luna.
And I'm Laura Newseth. Hello, everyone.
Hello, we're back. Another episode. And this one's going to be some piping hot tea. We've got some VTuber tea. Woo! Man, if you haven't heard about what had happened with this VTuber tea, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't, because like even YouTubers who had no idea what, like, do not talk about VTubers at all. We're talking about this situation. So basically,
I think like Vanity Fair also made an article. Like it reached some mainstream sources.
Yeah, which is wild and insane. But basically what happened is that Selen Tatsuki from Nijisanji was terminated. And it caused a big riot because of how they dealt with the termination. So, God, I don't even know what day it was. It was a few days ago now.
This was on Monday.
Monday?
Wait, was it Monday or Tuesday?
That was Monday or Tuesday. It was definitely Monday.
It was, February 5th. That's when they released the termination letter, the 3-page termination letter.
Yeah, they released a 3-page termination letter about the termination of Selen. And for those who don't know, who is Selen? So, Selen, obviously VTuber in Nijisanji, we already said, but she was the biggest female VTuber liver in Nijisanji on the EN side. There are some that are bigger than her in the original like JP branch, but she was the biggest female talent. Like she had 800,000 subs on YouTube, and she was a very good FPS player. She played a lot of FPS games. She was very gamer. And she liked to run a lot of tournaments. And now she has been terminated, and the internet is not happy.
No, it was honestly literally impossible to escape this news, everywhere.
Yep.
And updates literally multiple times a day, different allegations, different people coming up. Like it has been an insane week for Nijisanji.
Yep.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing, right? So let's kind of get into like the nitty gritty of it. So basically, Nijisanji had released a statement kind of talking about everything she had done wrong and everything she like had done wrong, and like throwing, like people under the bus, and not taking any type of accountability for themselves as the company.
Yeah. I think that's what pissed off people the most, because it was just, I mean, reading the statement, if you're familiar with Japanese business etiquette, it's very Japanese.
Yes.
But I feel like the majority of international people aren't familiarized with Japanese business culture or anything like that. So reading this, it's a very dry, very just, it lacks any compassion.
It's a very dry state. You want to repeat that? It
oh yeah. No worries. Reading the 3-page statement, it reads off like a typical Japanese, like, I would say like PR statement. It's just very dry, very to the point. Lacks any sort of like humility or compassion. But that's how they operate. Like, although they do have the EN branch, they're still running the EN branch with Japanese business etiquette.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is that like from a Japanese standpoint, like when you look at the difference between how the Japanese audience reacted to the statement to the EN side, the Japanese side of things, like all of the Japanese fans were like, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like that sucks, but oh well. Like it was normal to them. Like they didn't see anything wrong with it. Whereas like the EN side of, the West, we all looked at it and we're like, what the hell is this? Like what is this?
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm gonna give some. Well, it's not really a hot take, but like back when Zaion. So I'm gonna talk a little about Zaion, and this one was a termination too. Zaion. Let me give some backstory on Zaion. So Zaion was a part of a wave called XLA, and they had only been with the company for not even 3 months before they got terminated, right? And I think that, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the fans brought this upon themselves, right? And brought this upon everything. Even though it's okay. This is the hot take. This is the hot take. I have like so many different like things I want to say, but I don't know how to formulate all of them into a cohesive thing. So bear with me, okay? So the fans kind of brought this upon themselves in a way of like, and still the company is still wrong for this, and I still think they should have never done this. But back when Yugo, who was who graduated back in like December 14th of 2022, 2022. They graduated, right? And people were really upset about Yugo's graduation because Yugo was part of the Noctix wave, their second male wave, the one right after Luxium. And people were really upset because they wanted transparency. And one of the things that the audience, that Niji fans really begged for constantly and criticized Niji was transparency, right? They were like, you guys need to be transparent. You guys need to be transparent. You guys need to be transparent. And I'm like, I think they don't need to be transparent, right? Because then what happened was Zaion came along, and Zaion did a bunch of really bad stuff. Like, she was not compliant with like the rules. She would talk about modding games on stream. She made a SA joke as well. On stream, she basically was she joked about being a Shotakan.
Yeah, I remember.
Like
that.
it was a lot. It was a lot that led to her termination, right? And when she got terminated, they did the exact same thing to Zaion as they did with Selen. But everyone hated Zaion. Everyone did not like Zaion because of all the shit she did on stream, right? And they gave a very similar statement to what Selen's was, right? But everyone back then was like totally cool with it because they're like, well, she deserved that, right? But the thing is like, even back then, I still did not agree with them doing this entire statement like the way that they did, right? Because it's not, it is like, unfortunately, you as a viewer, you as a fan are not entitled to why someone is terminated or why someone is graduating. You are not entitled to that. That is not like, I don't care how much fucking money you give to this business or to that liver. You are not entitled to that information, right? Like if you are, let's say you are a customer at Subway, right? Let's say you go to Subway and you have this one worker who always makes your stuff, and they know exactly, they see you walk in the door and they're already halfway done with the sandwich because they know exactly what you want because you get it the same thing every single time, right? Now, one day you come in and you're like, wow, I haven't seen them for a while. What happened to them, right? You ask the management, right? And manager goes, oh, you know, they left the company, or we had to terminate them, or we had to let them go. And that's all they have to say, right? You as a customer are not entitled to know exactly what they did wrong, right?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. I don't know if a lot of the fans are just underage and have never had a corporate job or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing anywhere. Yeah. Like, I know I've tweeted this, so I can say it, but recently, like, the company that I work for, a lot of people have been quitting, including people in VP positions. And I remember, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, we got an email like in the middle of the day saying like, oh, 2 of the VPs have quit and left the company. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all the information we got. They left and quit. No further like clarification, nothing. Because as employees, like, we don't need to know.
No.
And I don't want to be nosy enough to get in that business anyways. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just mind my own business. I come, I work, I clock out. That's it.
And you're a part of the company,
And
you
I'm part of
know?
the company. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like it's part of the problem that I see is because like the fans
Mhm.
asked for it, right?
Yeah.
And then they got exactly what they wanted, but now they're like, well, this isn't okay, right? Because it's like, no, transparency is bad. It well, okay, that sounds really bad out of context. But transparency is this is not something you should be transparent about, right? It should
Mhm.
only be between the liver and the company, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. That is it, right? And everyone being upset about, well, how did they do this to Selen is like, yeah, because you guys begged for transparency, and of course the company wants to always look good, right? So they threw people
Mhm.
under the bus, and that's fucked up, right? Like that's bad, right? Like they
Mhm.
throw other people under the bus, you know. And I think it was wrong of them. I thought it was wrong of them to do it with Selen. I thought it was real. It was also wrong for them to do it with Zaion, because that's not our business on why someone is terminated. The most that we need to know is that they breached contract. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the only if it's like, hey, Selen was terminated because she breached contract, right? Because this whole thing started when Selen had posted a music video that she had been working on, for, it was called A Last Cup of Coffee. She was doing a
Mhm.
cover, and she posted it on Christmas, and within the day it got also taken down by management, and she got really upset for it, right? She
Mhm.
got really upset. And you know, I this is my like hot this is my hot take. It might not be so hot, but you know, as someone who is a VTuber who has worked jobs, who has been in management at some of these jobs, she deserved the termination. Not the way that she was terminated, but the termination itself.
Mhm.
Because when you look at it from so they are a Japanese company, right?
Yeah.
And they have different laws when it comes to laws in Japan when it comes to copyright and all that stuff. And she potentially could have gotten them in a lot of fucking trouble because
Yeah.
she jumped the gun. And I know I saw people being like, well, she was just getting the job faster done than management. And I'm like,
Well, yeah. Again, I feel like that's just people not understanding Japanese business cultures. And as someone who works for a company that does business with like Japanese companies and deals with like approvals and licensing rights and all that stuff, they take a while.
they take a while
They
because
take a very long time.
you
They're
have to.
very
Oh, go ahead.
meticulous when it
Mhm.
comes to like getting approvals done and stuff like that. And I can understand why some of like um the livers from the EN branch might get like a, how would you say, just um oh my God, I'm thinking in Spanish. Just they might not be the most patient. They can get
Yes.
impatient when it comes to like waiting for approvals and things to get done. But it's just it. I mean, I'm not saying the Japanese way is correct, but it is the Japanese way, and they are working for a Japanese company.
Well, I wouldn't even say that like it's not a fact of it's correct or not. Is that
Mm,
that's just how their laws work. Because
yeah,
imagine had something gone under the radar where something was used and an artist was like, "Oh, I never actually gave the approval for this." Now I can sue them for lots
yeah,
of money because they use something without my approval in a way that I did not agree with, right? Like they have to go through the steps or they get in trouble, right? Like it's not them just being like, yeah, we're going to take forever just because like fuck you, Selen. It's more like they
mhm,
have to make sure that everything is in order so that way they don't get in trouble with the law.
yeah. And I feel like a lot of Selen's fans got mad because Selen had mentioned that she had gotten the permission from the artist and the producer of the song.
Yes.
But there's one thing for her to get the verbal approval from them.
Yeah.
And there's another thing to go through the company and get the approvals through the company.
Yes.
And it should have been, if she's under contract, everything should have gone through the company.
Yep.
And not just like little tweets saying like, yes, we agree, you can record the cover.
Well, and here's the thing too, is like there's like NDAs and all that stuff that need to be signed, and like there's so much stuff that happens, right? Because like I have signed an NDA with Nijisanji about something. It's already passed and it like didn't actually happen, but like I had to sign, right? Like they had to give me the paperwork to sign, you know, and I, you know, like that they're a company, because that's exactly like what companies do, is they have to, because that is just the way it works in companies. And it's not even a Nijisanji problem. It is just like, it's not even a problem, to be honest. It's just the way a business works, because you can't just willy-nilly do things, right? Because from their statement, you know, they said that she turned it in, like the finished project, to them on like the 24th, and she posted at JP time.
Everything was like, everything was just super quickly.
Yeah.
Like,
and then the 26th, she posted it JP time. And it's not, and she didn't have it actually approved, right? And I think the very like a good example, because she's already done this now as her new persona, and basically during her stream, right? Like you literally see it happen live right in front of you, why she got terminated, right? So she had a merch, like she has a merch store, right? And she was trying to, on stream, being like, manager, you know, like post it, like post it now, post it, like can we post it, right? When it was not ready to be up, right? And so it went up, and now people are having trouble with the international people are having problems with the shipping and being accurate shipping. And so they had to, I think, cancel some of the orders because of that, right? Because it wasn't ready, right? It wasn't ready. It didn't go through the proper steps, right? Now imagine, had she done that in Nijisanji, just imagine like something like that. Would the audience not be mad that Nijisanji didn't take the proper steps to make sure everything worked? Right? Like people would be mad because they didn't take the precautions. But then she does it, and everyone's like, no, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine, right? And it's like, no, it's not okay. And this is an example of why she got terminated, is because stuff like that can happen if you do not make sure everything is aligned and correct.
Well, like I was on the welcome back stream and everything, and it was, as an older like fan of VTubers, it was very strange just seeing how demanding she was being on stream. I feel like all of that should have been like a private conversation between her and her manager.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there was over 100,000 people on the stream.
Yes. Push.
She got an immense amount of subscribers within like a few hours.
Yes.
So yes, it's, as a business move, smart.
Mm-hmm.
In a way.
Yeah.
But let's say the international shipping not working, it should have been the least of her concern, because there's actually like safety. Like, I imagine if the card information got leaked because they didn't take the necessary steps to ensure that the website was secure, encrypted correctly and secure and everything like that. That should have been the first priority, not just trying to get the merch out for people to pre-order it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I mean though, is like those are like the steps that you need to take, and you can't just skip over. Like you cannot just skip over those steps, because like you get problems like that, right? And so that is my little defense for Nijisanji when it comes to termination, at least, because I know a lot of people were like she was unfairly terminated, but she really wasn't. She was, and the other thing I would say, what was unfair of Niji and what was I'm gonna be honest, she probably should have been terminated earlier.
That's what I was thinking too.
And it's funny because we had watched a documentary and like you had watched a documentary talking about how like people who have been there longer have like more authority or like are respected more, right?
Yeah,
And I
there's
think
a hierarchy.
there's a hierarchy. And because she was in one of the first waves, that not the first wave, I think she was in the second wave, right? But because she had been there for so long that like, because I have a feeling they didn't want to terminate her earlier because it would have looked bad if they had terminated her too early, right? And they tried to work with her because like she's been there longer, right? That's why Zaion got, snapped so quickly, is because like she came in a very later wave, like, she did a bunch of stuff that was really bad, and they were like, well, we're gonna just cut our losses, it's fine, right? But with Selen it was different, and they should have probably, because they should treat everyone equally, and they didn't. And that's what I'm gonna say is like really really bad of Niji, is to not treat all of their livers equally.
And that just goes, I mean, they're running the business like a Japanese business when the people inside that they're in contract with are not Japanese. And I don't think they're well versed in Japanese work culture.
Yeah.
They should be.
I think the only two that are Japanese are Kotaka and Meliko, which funny enough is from XLA. They are Japanese. But the other thing too is like, if you are going to have an EN branch, right? You're going to have an EN branch. You need to have, in my opinion, you should have EN like managers, as in people who are from the West, who are native English speakers, or at least not even native English. They don't have to be native English, but like fluent in English, but from the West, who understand the Western cultures, right? Like because not everyone's from like the US, like, you got people in Europe and stuff, and that might not, English might not be their first language, but like they are fluent enough, right? And then also fluent in Japanese as well to talk to the JP side. But the thing is, go ahead.
I agree. I was going to say, because I find it crazy that they obviously have invested a lot of money in the EN branch and everything, but in terms of a Japanese company, like, you have Nintendo that have a Nintendo International in the US. You have Pokemon that also have international offices in Seattle. If you're trying to have business outside of Japan, like international business, you need to think about it in an international sense. You can't just run everything like a Japanese business in Japan, but at the same time have everyone that's under contract, well, almost everyone, be non-Japanese. They're not going to understand that work culture if you don't take the time to explain it. And I don't think they do, considering a lot of the livers are young adults.
Young adults who are not Japanese.
Yes.
And the other thing on top of it too is that like, so because I was talking to my roommate about this, and they mentioned about how like other companies, like you said, have like international like offices, right? So like example, McDonald's has a ton of international offices, right? And there's a reason why you have like certain menu items in certain places that we don't have in the US, right? Like they get like ube pie, right, is like one of them, and like we have never had ube pie. I think they do have it in Hawaii, but like that's very specific to Hawaii itself, right? But they have like for they do different tests and stuff for those specific like tastes and customers of that country, right? And then they report it back to the US branch, which would be the main branch, right? And they communicate that way. But the international offices operate as their kind of own separate entity that just reports back to the OG.
Yes.
And that's what I think Niji absolutely needs to do. And it's wild to me that they don't, because I know other companies, like there's other JP companies that have specific international branches that have offices and other VTuber agencies, right? And I mean, that's why VShojo they haven't really done anything with it, but they do have their VShojo JP, which is just Kason right now. But but they had a separate branch, and that Kason would be the one running it, right? Not running it. I don't know if she's running it per se, but she's like the manager or whatever, right? And so it's like she understands Japanese culture because she is Japanese, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important, is that we're having management that is very specific to those places, so that way like it can flow better, because this would never happen if they had people who were Western managers who just spoke Japanese as well too, to relay back to the company.
Yeah. And I feel like this wouldn't have happened if they would have had the Western people handling the PR to address a Western audience.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just, yeah, considering how profitable Nijisanji has been in just general.
Yep.
I'm very surprised that they don't have at least, I mean, when we're saying like have an international branch, we don't mean have like a whole like, high-rise executive building. Like they can start off small.
Yeah.
But just having like maybe 5 managers, let's say, I'm just throwing numbers, like 5 Western managers that are much better at handling just the EN branch. They don't have to focus on the Japanese branch. They're just focusing on those EN talents.
Yep.
I think there would be much less complaints about, dealing with managers and approvals and all that stuff, because they wouldn't be as overworked as maybe the current managers are.
Yep. I definitely don't, like, I know a lot of people say that Nijisanji is a black company. I don't think they are a black company, because in the grand scheme of things, well, not only, okay, because like I know people, I know people in the company, and I've talked to them, and it's really not that bad. And the thing is like they do encourage you to take time off if you need to. They do encourage that, right? And to me, it was what maybe caused Selen to react the way she did, is that like a lot of creators, a lot of content creators feel like they can't take time off. Yeah. And that's a general thing, not just like in a company. Like a lot of us feel like we can't take time off. We can't just sit there and do nothing, right? Like if I ever sit there and do nothing, I feel so much guilt for doing nothing. Yeah. I felt guilt for not streaming for months, even though I knew my mental was really bad and I was not in a good headspace or physical space, to be honest. But I felt incredibly bad and guilty that I wasn't, doing anything, because I feel like everything will just disappear if I stop. Right?
Yeah. I feel like that's a mentality from like, I remember the early days of YouTube. Yeah. Like you were basically, even if you took a vacation, you had to pre-record everything, schedule it to go up, because there could not be a moment where you were not active. Like you cannot be inactive, because you were told that your numbers were going to decrease, you wouldn't be able to grow your channel. Yep. Monetization would suffer as well. So it's just, it's very much ingrained in content creator culture, I guess I would say.
Yes, because I think a lot of people think it's just Niji that does that. And I'm like, no, I know they do encourage people to take time off. Like I know they definitely do. And that their management isn't heartless. It's just that they are a Japanese company Like, that's just what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Is that you like, I guarantee the only difference between Niji and Hololive, like, is just that their managers know how to not say things publicly that they shouldn't, right? Because like let's not forget about Magni and Noir from Tempest, the first Hollow Stars EN wave, where they had debuted, like Noir had just debuted a brush up, like a new like brush up model, right? And then literally the next day, radio silence, just for a whole month. And then from both Magni and Noir, and then all of a sudden they've left the company. They're gone, right? Like we literally had zero anything.
The response was so different because they didn't overshare.
Yeah, they didn't overshare, and then but still people were like, where are they, right? And then like they didn't overshare, but I'm like, I don't know what happened there, right? But like it is something like, this is something that's common in Japanese companies. I mean, we can even see it in shows like Agretzko. Has a great, I think it has, at least in my opinion, from an outsider view, and from watching the video that video that you had sent earlier. Which one, what was the guy? What was the guy who made the video's name? What was his channel name?
I don't know, but we can link it in the YouTube information bar.
Yeah.
I can link to both of them. That way, if you are interested in learning more about the Japanese work culture, you can definitely learn from people that actually have worked for Japanese companies.
Yep. But I think Agretzko is a really good example of Japanese companies. And I really, because watching this like these interviews with these Japanese workers, like I really saw how Agretzko really reflected that, right? In an anime. And one of the things that what felt like for the termination letter statement from Niji about Selen was, it was the equivalent of so in Japanese work culture, if you make a mistake and they yell at you in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what exactly that statement was that
it definitely reads like that.
That's what it read like to me. And like, it felt like Nijisanji was yelling at Selen in front of everyone, right? Which is so normal apparently in Japanese culture, right? It's a very normal thing for that to happen. But obviously in the West, you never do that. Like if I ever saw like a manager yelling at an employee in front of customers, I would be like, I don't want to be here anymore.
I think like the typical person would just quit on the spot.
Yeah, to be honest, the typical person would quit. Yeah, but I mean, like if I was a customer, I would be like, I'm not shopping here anymore.
Oh yeah, customers would be like, I'm taking my business elsewhere.
Yeah, because that's something that would never happen, and I feel like in Japan, that is something that happens and something that is much more normal. I mean, it's not in front of customers; it's usually in front of your like fellow coworkers, but it feels kind of like the same thing, you know? And it's so interesting because like seeing how Japanese culture is so different is like, it is jarring, you know? Sometimes there are things that are jarring, like, you know, we've watched anime, right? And we'll see like office workers, they'll go out for drinking parties afterwards. And I thought that was just like a fun little thing they did, but I guess it's not. I guess like the workers don't really want to do that. I didn't know it wasn't optional.
Yeah, no, it's very much like not mandatory, but highly encouraged of you to participate.
Highly encouraged, as in it's mandatory without repercussions.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like a lot of Western fans have seen at least like part of like the kind of toxic Japanese work culture reflected in at least like live actions or anime, like the whole businessmen sleeping outside of train stations.
Yes, yeah.
Being blacked out, like passed out on the streets. Like that's very much a reality.
Yeah, for some of these companies, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
even the overworking mentality. Supposedly the Japanese government has taken some like legal steps to regulate working hours, but for managers and people in the companies, if they see an employee spending more time at work, they see that employee as valuable.
Mm-hmm.
If you just leave when you're supposed to leave, they're probably going to think like, oh, yeah, this is not somebody that like we want to necessarily like promote within the company or value very much. Like,
Only if they're a man, though.
oh yeah, if they're a man, yeah.
No, women don't
It's
get promoted.
it's a very different culture, and I think this has been an issue with a lot of Western fans that we just romanticize and
Infant,
infantilize, infantilize. I
infantilize.
think,
Yes.
yeah, Japan, because of the media that we consume. We love our manga, we love our anime, but at the same time, let's not forget we have actual like proof that some animation studios like MAPPA overworks their employees. We have heard
Yes.
examples of how their animators are just forced to work and not see their families for months.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we also had reports of some animators like dying as well.
Yep.
Even as recent as last fall, with JJK season 2 was airing, we had the director speaking up about the work conditions. We had animators speaking up about the work conditions. But yes, some people were mad, but there wasn't this outrage that Nijisanji is currently experiencing.
Which is
And I
wild to
think,
me, right? Is like
yeah,
an animator passes away from being overworked in a
mm-hmm,
company, but yet there's no outrage, not even nearly as much outrage as a poor PR move from Nijisanji, which is
it's wild.
crazy.
But I mean, people get attached to their favorite livers. So it's like, I can understand. As a fan, I can understand why people would react that way.
Yes.
But also, as fans of just Japanese media in general, we can't just pick and choose. Like,
No.
if you're going to be mad about like the working conditions, be mad also at MAPPA, be mad at like
Oh my god, I hate Mappa.
manga magazine publicators like Shueisha overworking their mangakas to the point that they have to go and put like their stories on hiatus.
Yeah,
Like, this is
Oda,
nothing new.
One Piece. That man has not had like a break in literally like 20 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, even in like the shojo side, I mean, Ayasawa, we know that she had to put Nana on hiatus because of health conditions.
Yep.
I mean, let's not pretend that the work conditions didn't contribute to those health conditions, because they most certainly did.
They most certainly did. And that's the unfortunate part, is like we're seeing people literally work themselves to death, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like it makes me mad. Okay, the whole MAPPA thing makes me really mad, because MAPPA
Yeah.
used to be such a good company when they were doing like BL shit, when they were, they were making things for the girlies, and then ever since they got into shonen, I feel like it'd gotten toxic. Let's be right, like, because I feel like they've forgotten their roots, because like MAPPA's the same company that did Yuri on Ice and Banana Fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they were supposed to do Ice Adolescence, and then that's just never happening. Like, it's just never happening, because they picked up Attack on Titan and Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man, and it's like, yeah, you guys do good work, but you guys are now like, you guys see the money, and that's what grosses me out. Is like, before it felt like they had things where it was like passion, and now it's just money, and that makes me mad.
They used to take their time between like projects.
Yes.
It was documented that for the JJK Zero movie, a movie that typically would take 1 through 3 years to animate,
Yeah.
they got the animators to complete the whole movie in 4 months.
Oh my god.
You can just imagine how bad the working conditions were if
Yes.
they finished something that normally takes years in just 4 months, not even half a year.
I was about to say, I was like, when you look at just Disney films, right? Like that stuff would take like years, right? And now it's like months. And I'm like, so they were just sleeping in their chairs and taking naps
Pretty much.
for 4 months, probably skipping meals. Like, that's bad. That's so bad.
Yeah, and as much as Nijisanji is getting a lot of criticism and hate right now, I can assure you they're not as bad as
No,
some of the other companies.
no.
Not saying that they're good and they should be defended for some of the decisions they made recently,
Yes, I
but
agree.
I'm just saying they're not as bad as some people are making them out to see.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, people have been starting to make up stuff too.
Yeah.
Because Selen mentioned bullying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't mention that it was livers. She just said there was bullying. And I genuinely do not believe it was a liver. I genuinely believe it was probably a manager, right?
I
Like
think so
the
too.
same way as like you probably have ever worked, I assume that if you are someone who like you've worked one job in your life where you've had a manager you just did not like, right? Like you just did not like. And I've worked, I worked at a department store, and the overall manager I did not like, but my assistant manager, like the manager that I worked for, like directly under the assistant manager, I thought he was great. I thought he was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic and he was great. And there's people in management that happens even in the West, right? So I don't think it was a liver. I don't think it was another liver who was bullying her. That would just, I don't know, it just doesn't strike me right. Because there's screenshots going around and they're definitely fake. Like there's no shot that they're real. And like you're gonna have to trust me when I say they are not real, and it's easy to fake Discord screenshots. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so easy. Like Lauda and I could literally sit here in the Discord server, change our names to the
Oh
liver
yeah,
that we
it's
want to
so
be.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then our profile picture and just come up with the most wild shit ever. I could literally be like, I'm going to be Fulgur and I'm going to say pee pee poo poo. Pee pee poo poo, your face sucks. And
Yeah,
I
anyone
could
who
post
uses
that.
Discord, you can change your username and also your image for any server. Like, let's be real.
It's
Like,
so funny. And there was another tweet though that I saw, and it was in defense of of the livers, but I just was like, no, 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 you're a little off base there. And I felt bad because, oh god, this is the same account that, so 4chan thought that
mhm.
this Twitter account was like a PL account of Millie Parfait. And I was like, what?
Oh.
What? Like this like their name is like AJ or something like that. It's like AJ.
Uh-huh. Oh my
And
god.
they're very prevalent in the Nijisanji sphere, right? And I'm like,
Hmm.
they would not be a huge fan of Nijisanji and like be like always talking about Nijisanji and always like retweeting their like Oshis and stuff if it was Millie. That doesn't make sense. Do you, when you work for somewhere, are you like, man, I really love Firehouse Subs, and so now I'm gonna be like a Firehouse Subs like account on the side and be
Oh,
like, oh
hell
man,
no.
this is my favorite sandwich, and it's like, what? Huh? Huh? Like it doesn't.
You know what it reminds me of? Actually,
What?
this reminds me of a situation that happened in the beauty community. This is me remembering like my beauty guru YouTuber days.
Uh-huh.
I think it was not Summer Fridays. Sunday Riley. They actually did get in trouble for having their employees go on Sephora.com and inflating the reviews.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's so funny.
So I mean, it very rarely happens, but
Yeah, it very
yeah.
rarely happens, but like
I think most employees just when they log out of work, the last thing they want to do is like go to like to some kind of like forum or website
yeah.
and just like talk nothing but great things about that company. Like no.
But anyways, this AJ person, they made a tweet
Mm.
that made me. I was like, that's not cool. I don't think that's quite right. Well, basically, they were talking about these fake DMs, and they were like, these people are friends. Like, why would you think that they would use their character names to call each other by their character names instead of just their real names? And I was like, but people do though. Like, as a VTuber, I do know some people's real names. I never call them by their real names, and no one ever calls. I mean, Lauda here just still calls me Stella no matter what, even though like, I'm pretty sure you know my real name. But
I do.
But like, I was like, I can't remember if I told you or not. But like, you know my real name, but you do not call me that. You call me Stella still, because here's the thing, right? Is that if I started calling people by their real names in DMs, I could mess up on stream. Right?
Yeah,
it's just better to call them by
Stella.
Yeah, it's just better to call them by their like actual like their VTuber name rather than their real name, because like you don't want to mess up, because you don't want I've had people in the past mess up before. you know, like when I first started VTubing though. When I first started VTubing. You know, but like there are people who know like my real name and actually knew me before being a VTuber. Right. So they had to get used to calling me Stella instead. So they actually had to switch from calling me my real name to my VTuber name, because we would do streams together and they don't want to call me by the wrong name. And they do the same thing, because I guarantee a lot of them know each other's real names, but it's just that they're not going to call each other by their real names because they don't want the accidental slip up, of calling them by their real name and doxing them essentially. I just thought that was really funny. Though I did see my buddy Cozy tweet out about it, and she was talking about how like she's like, yeah, like she said the same thing as me, but then people pointed out like there are people, it might be a generational thing.
I think so. Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, I feel like, well, because even back in the day of like when I was playing a lot of MMORPGs back when I was like a teenager, right? Like I had my like character name, right? And that's what everyone called me, even though like I should have not been talking to strangers on the internet at that age, but but like everyone to my understanding was the same age as me. But I used like Windows Live Messenger, or I think it used to be MSN Messenger, but then it became Windows Live Messenger. And I would talk to people and they would never call me by my real name, because I did tell them like the real name, like just first name, and I have a pretty like simple first name. It's not like it is. Yeah, but anyways, but they'd always call me by my there was only a few people, not all of these people knew my actual name, but like they'd always call me by my name, right? Because I had a really good female friend who knew my name. But that was it. But we would call or talk to each other through Windows Live Messenger, right? Basically Discord before Discord, for those who are really young.
Yeah.
It was like Discord before Discord, actually, now that I think about it.
Really
but then it got replaced by Skype, and then Skype got replaced by Discord. That's crazy.
Yes.
I did use Skype as well too. But anyways, but even back then, like people would just call me by my actual, like by my username and never by like an actual name. And because even like when I added some of these people on Facebook, right? It would just be, they still call me by my username. And that's a very common thing. And I
think so too.
But I definitely think a lot of young people will be like, here's my full entire name to this stranger on the internet, and now you call me only that and not by my handle. And I'm like, when you're a content creator, you absolutely like having a handle is like usually better to have. It is safer. It is much safer.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But yeah, I just the freaking God, it just the screenshots made me so mad.
Going back to that part of the statement about the bullying and harassment that Selen experienced.
Yeah.
The way it was worded in the statement, I think it was one of the, well, I mean, the whole statement as a whole was a big mistake.
Yeah,
the way
everything was a
things
big
were
mistake.
worded. But the way they worded the bullying in particular, let me pull it up if I can find it. They really did not protect the rest of the livers. And I feel like that
No.
was such a bad move on Niji's part. Again, for people listening, I'm not defending Niji as I'm a fan of the livers, very critical of the company now.
Yes, me too.
So let me find
It's crazy too because I've definitely auditioned multiple times, and I haven't gotten like close because I saw people saying that I got close, and I was like, I didn't. I just had a lot of views on my auditions. Like I would get like I have a lot of views, and like I could tell that they were definitely thinking about me. But maybe I just, like they clear, because here's the thing is like when you audition for something and you get like a ton of views on a video and they don't send you anything, right? They passed on you, but they did think about you and they have thought about you and they keep thinking about you. So, eventually it's one of those things where it's like if you keep auditioning for something, you'll eventually get in. Now, if I audition now and when they open up auditions again, I for sure would be able to get in. But that's because nobody else is auditioning.
Yeah.
No one else is gonna audition. And like, I'm not gonna audition. That's not me saying I'm actually gonna audition. And I refrain from talking about auditioning because like I don't want that to ruin chances of me getting into Niji. But now that this happened, I kind of don't want to because whether or not like how I feel about getting into the company, it would still be like it's like social suicide at this point, like because like you would if you got it, you graduated or you went on indefinite hiatus and you got into the company, all of your peers are gonna look at you and go, wow, like you joined this company knowing like what they've done and what they're doing, and you're like you want to throw away what you're doing just for that tiny bit of clout. Like the tiny bit of which by the way, I don't even think there would be any anyways, because like everyone, all the livers that come after this, they're royally fucked from this whole thing.
They really are.
They are.
Unless they do what we have suggested and branching out and actually having an international office.
Yes.
I really don't know how they can actually change public perception overseas. Like they really have to do something big for them to make right with the Western audience.
I think I definitely, in my opinion, like I think they're really messed up, and that they did something that was really not cool, and the only way
I found the part of the harassment.
Okay, let me finish my statement here.
Yes.
The only way that I would feel like they are actively like trying to do better is if they did hire new management and made kind of an international office. And
they would have to make a statement too.
Make a statement too. But like to me, that is showing that they are trying to change what they did, right? Like that is it. And that's how, in my, at least for me personally, because like as someone who does know some of the livers, that is how I feel like I can let them move forward, because I want them to move forward. I want the livers to do well and this to not affect the livers anymore.
Yeah.
What was the statement?
The statement reads, despite our efforts, Selen Tatsuki demanded that any color should be legally responsible. She claimed that she was no longer able to engage in her activities as a liver due to the decisions made by any color, was being harassed by affiliated livers due to mismanagement, etc., while refusing to acknowledge her responsibility for violating activity rules. Moreover, Selen Tatsuki insisted that if the negotiations did not progress, she would proceed to release a statement regarding her claims to the public. And this is in the second page of the 3-page long termination letter.
Lordy.
In the part about the termination of affiliation contract. in case you actually wanted to read it. But that statement about the harassment put a target on every single EN Liver's back. And
Well,
it's completely unfair to them.
okay, because I did see this earlier. But I was sick during all of this, and that's why I was kind of like I was like in the loop, but not quite. I think the Japanese statement read differently though.
It read differently, supposedly, yeah.
Supposedly,
I,
like
I,
it
I've
was.
heard
Mhm.
I've heard that the first person that translated it mistranslated it, then somebody else came and translated it, but still read a little bit different from like what they made in English. So it could have been interpreted as someone in Nijisanji and meaning management, which I feel like it's most likely the case.
Yes.
But the English statement mentioned the
Because
livers.
to me, it doesn't make sense to point out a liver for doing that. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't make sense on like their part to like be like, yeah, a liver was harassing and bullying Selen. Because I'm like, why would you say that? Like that just actually makes no sense. Right? And that's what would like it makes so little sense that I'm like, it has to be a mistranslation. Which again goes back to why we need a PR team that is English, native English speakers. Like that like, just goes back because if that is a mistranslation, then like it just goes back to my like our original point.
Yeah.
Like it makes literally no sense because now everyone's like because everyone went after Millie about it, and I'm like I don't understand because Millie was like. Because it was because of this interaction between Millie and Selen when Selen said she had to take down the video, the music video, and Millie literally was like, "Did you get all the permissions to post it?" Like she was just genuinely asking, and everyone's just like, "It was Millie. Millie's the one harassing," and I'm like, "Okay, you know what Millie's statement tells me is that this isn't Selen's first time doing something like this." That's what.
Well, even Selen has mentioned it on stream that. Like she jumped over like approvals and stuff on other things, and sometimes they would get canceled.
Yes, yeah, and
like, in the statement it was mentioned this was not her first like violation of like the contract.
Yes, it was not, and that's I cry. Well, here's the other thing too, right? Is that not everyone is going to be fit for corporation. That's just a fact, right? So I know people are like really like looking into like why Kyo Kaneko, who is graduating here on the 17th, I think, so like a week from now. He is, at least of the recording, he's graduating, right? And people are like shocked and they're now like hyper analyzing it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna lie though, like if you paid attention to Kyo, you would know that, yeah, it makes sense why he's leaving. Not everyone.
He was always very open about like using this as a stepping stone.
Yep. And that's the thing is like, just because someone's graduating does not mean that their experience in the company was bad, right? And that, or like that they were treated so horribly, because like, that's just not the case. I mean, like, to me, I'm like, I think it's a little unfair of fans to like think that like these like for the company to be good, these livers could never leave. Like that's how I feel, because like when Pomu left, right? To me, I'm like looking at Pomu's like PL account, like her account now. It makes total sense to me. I'm sorry, I got distracted because my mouth was like my model was like moving behind me.
Weird.
It was desynced, and I was like, what is going on here? But anyways, Pomu's personal account, she talks about idols a lot. She loves idols. She loves idols, right? And like, to me, what that reads as is like, so Pomu was the very first EN liver we had. Like, she was the first one to debut in the first group, right? And she probably joined because she wanted to do more idol-y things. I guarantee she wanted to be more idol. but Nijisanji is not quite as idly as, you know, like I know a lot of people are like, well, they're still like, clearly they're still like part of idol culture. And I'm like, I actually don't think that. I think that Nijisanji is just still Japanese, a Japanese company. It's not, and it's not idol, it's Japanese company. But anyways, but she like clearly, I think she left because she wanted to, she like wanted to move on, right? It wasn't quite like what she wanted or what she expected, and she wanted to move on. And she'd been there for you know, almost 4 years, upcoming on 4 years, right? And you know, I see people like, oh, they're graduating around the same time, and it's like, yeah, because contracts end, and they can't keep them past their contract, you know. So if they don't renew, so like when Etheria, not Etheria, sorry, that's the wrong group. Lazulite and Illuna debuted, it was around the same time of year, right? So when you have when you look into when they debut and when they're graduating, if they're close together, look at when they both debuted, right? Because Illuna and Lazulite debuted around the same time of year, 2 years apart. And I'm pretty sure their contracts are around 2 years. Just from my understanding, it's about a 2 year, which sounds about right. It's pretty common.
Even in the documentary we saw, they mentioned that contract work usually is around like a year or 2 years.
Yep, a year or 2 years, right? So more than likely, like contracts were coming up and they just chose not to renew it, you know? And because like, and now like me, I feel like I've been, it might sound like I'm defending like Nijisanji, but I'm really not. I'm really just, I just really want, like, I want people to really understand like the nuances and where they should be upset. Not that I'm defending, because I'm like, not every graduation is going to be, oh, the company's bad. It's like sometimes people just genuinely leave because it's an unhealthy mindset for it's unhealthy for the livers. Right? Because imagine you're in this company, and when you graduate, everyone's going to speculate on being like, oh, the company is bad, and you make it worse for your friends, you know, by you leaving. The thing
is, people quit their jobs all the time, whether it's for personal reasons, whether it's to, you know, start a new career path. This is normal. Yeah. You're just seeing it in a different light because you're attached to the livers, but it's the exact same thing as any other employee of a company.
Yep.
There comes a time that you feel like you just need a change of pace.
Absolutely. And
it can be as simple as that.
Yeah. And let's be real. Being in these corporations is not like the end all be all. Like, it's not like you join and you're going to be there for the rest of your life. Most of these livers are not going to be there for the rest of their lives. They're creative people, right? A lot of content creators are creative people. So they're going to want to change things up at some point and change their content or do different things in life and stuff like that, right? And that's very natural. And so, like, you know, I see a lot of people being like, well, they've had so many people graduate. And I'm like, yes. And they have so many people who also join at the same time, right? Like, they have a lot of waves. Whereas, like, because it's like, well, HoloLive has had X, Y, and Z, like, only this many people graduate. And I'm like, yeah. And they barely ever bring new people on, you know? So, like, if it's all, like, relative, you know? Like, everything's always relative. And you know, also like with Kyo's graduation, Kyo was not a VTuber beforehand. He was not a VTuber, right? And I could not imagine being someone who's not a VTuber and stepping.
That's like me joining a VTuber corporation.
Yeah, like stepping in and being like, I'm not used to this, and being like, wow. This is insane. Like, this is like, what? What do you mean that people want to ship me with other people? What do you mean that they're going to use my mental illness, but my illness in fan fiction and like make it weird? You know, like, what do you mean by that? You know, like that. The culture of VTubing would be very stark, very like. It's I can't even think of the words. I can't even think of the words, you know.
It's just drastically different from being like quote unquote flesh tuber, or just a, someone who's not, I mean, Kyo's like previous YouTube channel has been showing up on pretty much every Kiyomi's like recommendation page. So I've most of us have already moved on and are already subscribed to like his personal channel.
Yeah.
And like it's so funny reading through the comments like, man, that is one recognizable ass voice if I knew one.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So
I
it's
am
like it's very understandable. Like, you know, his time at Niji is coming to an end. He made it very clear that he wanted new creative endeavors. It's become like the thing that like we're trying to cope with it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's so funny too, because like first of all, I don't think he's gonna be a VTuber again. I don't think
I
he's
don't
gonna go
think so
back.
either.
He's not gonna go back to VTubing. But on top of that though, I will miss the little funny interaction I had with him.
I remember, yeah.
It's so funny. It's so funny because like I don't know how many of you guys know, but like so a year ago, I would say about a year ago. So no, it wasn't a year ago. It was it was back in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
He had put out a tweet about like he wanted to draw VTubers on stream. So and he put out that tweet. So a bunch of VTubers like put in their like reference sheets or their models and stuff. And obviously I put in my model, right? And then he drew me on stream. And then I took that art like and I made it into a model. And it was such a funny interaction because then he came into my stream and he's like, there's no fucking way you're using this model. And I'm like, he's like, why would you do that to yourself? And I'm just like, I was like, you don't come into my stream and disrespect me, blah, 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 or something. I don't remember. We had like an interaction that was really funny. He's like, oh, I wish I could, or yeah, that's what it was. He's like, I wish I knew how to rig. And I was like, oh, it's not that hard. You don't need like a big brain for it. Like, unless you don't have pea-sized brain is fine, but I don't even know if you have that. And he's like, excuse me, I am your mama, you don't disrespect your mama like that. And I was like, yeah, and I rigged it so I'm the father of the house, which means I'm the man of the house, so you don't talk to me like that. And he's like oh shit, you're right. It was a really funny little interaction. That was very fun. It was a highlight. I think it was a highlight of last year. I think that was just really funny. So it is sad to see him go, right? And it was sad to see Pomu go and stuff like that. But again, people move on in their endeavors and stuff like that. All right, everyone. So we're actually having some technical difficulties. So we're actually going to wrap it up right here. And because I think we've talked about everything we wanted to about like Japanese companies and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
And in BG Bonji as well. So
yeah, I feel like as fans, I can understand where the anger is coming from,
yes.
but this is a much bigger issue than just Nijisanji. Let's be real.
Yeah, I was about to say it is definitely a much bigger issue than Nijisanji itself. It is very much a Japanese corporation issue that we're seeing, and I don't want people's anger to be pointed towards the livers. And yeah. I think just kind of as a last statement, like if you don't want to support Nijisanji, that's totally fine. Don't buy their merch. Like if you really like, clearly people have been a lot of companies that have been partnering with Nijisanji have pulled out of partnering with them. And, so they're seeing that. They are seeing, you guys not buying merch as well. I think that, like, if you want to support by, like doing supas to livers, you should. If you still want to support them, yes, it does give money to Niji, but it doesn't hurt them as much as merch. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, agreed. I say, like, don't pinpoint all this anger to the livers.
Yeah. And
I think that's very unfair. And it's something that, I mean, Dokibird has stated
yes
to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people should at least respect her wishes.
Absolutely. And on top of that too, I would like to say that like I saw some artists being like, I don't want to sell Nijisanji merch anymore, or like yeah, and I totally get that, and I think, you know, like, you decide what you want to do, but I actually think if people want to continue to support and show support of their livers, that the artists should continue to make merch, because then people will buy the fan merch instead of the actual merch from Nijisanji, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, I understand why you don't want to make merch anymore, but I definitely think that, like, you know, I think it would be better to still create merch and buy from artists the same way that, like, what happens with like Harry Potter. Don't buy Harry Potter stuff, buy like fan made stuff, you know? And so that way you can still enjoy, you know, what you like without giving money directly to them, because you have to remember, livers don't really make money off of merch. They make like, I think 2%, something like that, off of merch. But the voice packs though, and I saw other people like sharing their voice packs. Don't share their voice packs. That's where they actually make their money. That is where they put in the work for that. That's where they get most of their money, is from their voice packs. So sharing and leaking voice packs is only hurting the livers and not Nijisanji. Plus, they already got your fucking money. Like, why are you leaking it, you know? But that hurts the livers. Like, support the livers and in ways that are around Nijisanji. So buying fan merch, even though they don't get a cut of that, they still would love to. I know they would love to see people still having merch or still having things of theirs, and seeing the they like the support. It's the thought that counts, you know. And you know, try and support in ways that don't involve just directly giving money to Niji.
Yeah. And I feel like for fans, like, I feel like they feel such a responsibility to be the ones making Nijisanji make changes on a corporate level.
Yeah.
I feel like, yes, it will play a little bit of a role, but again, we're talking about a Japanese company, so it's very tricky. And I don't think fans need to go out of their way to make people's lives more difficult, because again, don't go after the livers, because it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And we don't know who works in Niji too. For all we know, they could be overworked, like, young adults as well. Just, this may be their first corporate job, so
That's true. That's a good point.
There's just a lot. But I think for public perception, they really do need to consider actually being an international branch.
Yes. And also, I will say that I definitely think it is making them change things, because of the fact that companies like, was it Height, which is like they do, I think, computers. They pulled out of making Nijisanji computers, and like other companies like that have pulled out of like actually officially working with them. And I think that's really making them realize they messed up hardcore.
Yes. I think the change will most likely be coming from like corporate sponsors dropping out.
Yes.
Even if livers decide to maybe not stream for a full week or something.
Yes.
I think that's when they're going to be like, oh, shit, like, there needs to be some changes.
Absolutely. But I think that's everything. I think we've kind of covered everything we wanted to talk about. So thank you guys so much for listening in this week to Shojo's Bizarre Adventure. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed. You know.
Yes, we're gonna make little milestones. Next milestone, 600. We would love to reach 1,000.
No, I want 1 million subscribers by next week. Thank you. That is my demand. I'm holding you guys accountable. I'm just kidding.
We want that YouTube play button, okay?
We want that YouTube play button that the livers never get. Whoops, my bad.
Oh my god.
Whoops, did I say that? I didn't say anything. thing. But yeah, make sure you subscribe to us. You know, and follow us on platforms, Shojo Podcast everywhere. Instagram, Twitter. Yeah.
Instagram, Blue
We need to
Sky
make a
now
Blue
that it's
Sky.
open.
Wait, do we have a Blue Sky?
Yeah, we have a Blue Sky.
Oh, I
It's
didn't know
very
that.
quiet. I don't have one for myself.
I have one for myself, but
the bad thing is like they still don't allow like multiple accounts. So
that's
the
annoying.
Shojo's Bizarre Adventure lives on my phone. Maybe I should just have another one. My personal account on my iPad.
I was about to say, get just another phone. There you go. Problem solved.
Yeah.
But yeah, follow us everywhere. Make sure you follow us everywhere. And we will talk to you guys next week.
Next week. Hopefully, no more dumpster fires, please.
Yeah, please. No more dumpster fires. All right, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.